Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com and the Big Four Accounting Firms YouTube channel. Before we get started, just wanted to remind everybody to support us if you have a chance or if you can. Even $1 helps, and we have a link in the description to a website called Buy Me a Coffee. It's just a way to donate to us and support us. Again, any amount is helpful so that we can keep putting out content. And there's also other ways for you to support us in the show notes to this podcast or on YouTube in the description.
In today's podcast, we're going to be talking about Deloitte. There's some news that came out about Puneet Ranjan. He recently did a webcast with the Hindustan Times in India, and he made some pretty amazing statements when he went on there. And the reason he was on the Hindustan Times was because they had a leadership summit and they invited him. And he started out the call by speaking about his background from India and how he made it over to America, and also how he sees the future of India and the future of Deloitte. And one of the interesting things he said was that Deloitte currently has 55,000 individuals in India that service their global clients. And he says they have centers across the country. And the biggest thing that he said is they plan to double the number of their employees over the next 2 to 3 years. And he says that the reason they're being so aggressive is because of the talent arbitrage summary. So for all of you out there that work in India and are constantly looking for information about the Big Four accounting firms, which is a lot of people I know, this is pretty big. It's a pretty big opportunity with the Big Four accounting firms, and specifically with Deloitte. But if Deloitte is making this statement, Puneet Ranjan is making this statement, I'm sure that many of the other Big Four accounting firms are thinking the same way. And one of the key things he said was that it's a talent arbitrage opportunity. And I fully believe this because Deloitte laid off a bunch of people in the United States. They didn't do that for no reason. They did that because it's probably too expensive, and then everybody's going to be working at home for their clients. Well, that doesn't mean you don't need people. He obviously sees that they're going to be needing people in the future, even though it's the middle of the pandemic. As I said, the Big Four accounting firms have still been doing pretty well this year. What they do see this as is an opportunity to get rid of high wage earners, for example, in the United States, and outsource that to countries like India. And the reason this is happening now is because of the pandemic. People are working from home. So if you're not a strong worker in the US, you're more likely to get outsourced to India. And if you are working in India, you're more likely to find work. But this is going to change the nature of the Big Four accounting firms and just professional services in the future. But I see a potential problems with this as well, because a lot of companies don't trust the Big Four accounting firms to do extremely difficult work. And they'll request CPAs or lawyers. And if a partner tries to staff an engagement and says, well, most of it will be staffed out of India. Now, some companies will say, okay, but there's a lot of them out there that will say, no, we need CPAs on this, and we want people in America because they want people on site. But Deloitte is taking advantage of this now for the clients that will accept this because it's cheaper labor. And people working from home, for the most part, clients aren't going to care. But in my experience, a lot of clients do care. And a lot of times they want people on site. Even though we're not working on site right now, they're still going to want people in the US available during US hours. Because when you have these international engagements and you have people working overseas, you have to set up calls at different times. And that doesn't always work with the client. And the client doesn't want to have to figure out what time schedule various teams in India are working on. So I think this is a pretty big statement by Puneet Ranjan. We'll see how it actually works out over the next 2 or 3 years to see if he actually implements this and whether this affects the number of jobs that Deloitte's going to create in the United States and other countries. He sees the talent arbitrage opportunity. It seems really amazing because it is amazing. It could really help their bottom line, but there's a little bit of kinks that they're going to have to figure out. So that's the update for today. To get future updates, make sure to subscribe to this podcast. Support us financially through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes to this podcast. And if you can't do that, then subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video on our YouTube channel. Thanks for listening.